Our story begins with Mr. Alex Lifeson from Toronto, Canada, born to Serbian immigrants as Alexander Zivojinovic. Alex began his music career on the viola before quickly moving to guitar at age 12. In 1963, Alex formed The Projection with school friend drummer John Rutsey and bassist Gary Cooper. Gary Cooper was eventually replaced by bassist and vocalist Jeff Jones in late 1968. Geddy Lee was also born in Willowdale to Jewish Holocaust survivors Mary and Morris Weinrib. When his father passed away, Geddy felt inspired to get the most out of his music and life. Initially playing guitar before switching to bass, Geddy replaced Jeff Jones some weeks after Jeff had first joined the band. The name Rush came soon after they began touring in high schools, suggested to them by John Rutsey's brother. It was then that they hit their stride by playing the likes of Cream and Jimi Hendrix. As the band grew in popularity and made a name for themselves, they set their sights on making an album. Rush released their first single, a cover of Buddy Holly's Not Fade Away, in 1973. Reaching 99 on the RPM charts, the single did little to boost their fame. However, with the assistance of a manager at the time, Ray Daniels, Rush set about recording their first album. Initially recorded with producer David Stock before being re-recorded with Terry Brown. Rush's self-titled album debuted in 1974. It was a hard rock monster with clear inspirations from Led Zeppelin and the likes. Following limited local success, the album found popularity when the song Working Man piqued the interest of a Cleveland radio station. Subsequently, the band signed with Mercury Records, who re-released the album in the US. Touring of the album began, and so did the problems. John Rutsey, burdened with health complications from his diabetes, was eventually fired from the band after missing months of gigs. With the absence of a drummer, Alex and Geddy began auditioning and found none other than Neil Peart. Neil was born in Hamilton, Ontario, and had his first dealings with music with piano lessons, which had little impact on him. By age 14, his parents had bought him his first drum kit, and by 18 he had travelled to London to further his music career. It was here in the UK that he was influenced by philosophy and the idea of individualism, and inspired lyrics from songs like Anthem and 2112. Peart's work can also be seen at its best on Rush's second album, Fly By Night, and their third, Caress of Steel, with songs such as the three-part epic The Necromancer, which delves heavily into science fiction and fantasy. Caress of Steel didn't live up to the band's expectations, however, and, with pressure from their disappointed record label to make their next album more accessible, the band were faced with a choice. They could turn their music into more accessible, commercially friendly pop, or dive into a world of their own making. Into 7 sections, 2112 describes a bleak world of space federations and oppressive priests. Alex Lifeson describes 2112 as the birth of real Rush, and rightly so, as the album sets the foundation for everything that followed. 1977 saw the release of Farewell to Kings, recorded at Rockfield Studios in Wales. The album saw their music grow to new heights, with each song becoming more complex and intricate. Songs like Xanadu saw the courtyard of the studio being used to create natural reverb, whilst the title track of Farewell to Kings saw more acoustic parts by Alex. The last song on the album, Cygnus X1, saw a continuation of the science fiction displayed in 2112. This is also continued in the album Hemispheres, with the song documenting the return of the adventurer who stumbles upon Olympus, where Apollo and Dionysus fight. The total story adds up to about 28 minutes and 33 seconds across the two albums. Alex and Geddy described the recording of Hemispheres as being ambitious, hard to record and draining, and rightly so. At this point, things were becoming formulaic. Extended space operas were reaching well beyond the 10-minute mark, and, with the dawn of the 80s on the horizon, the band was shifting once more. Rush dropped the kimonos and extended songs and moved towards reggae and new wave. Permanent Waves saw synthesizers come to the forefront of the sound, and the creation of more radio-friendly music. Spirit of the Radio, arguably one of Rush's greatest songs, helped see the album to number 5 on the US charts. Rather than approaching fantasy and sci-fi, Peart looked towards social and emotional elements that helped to build a more relatable song. Songs like Limelight saw Neil grappling with fame. On the other hand, in their following album, Moving Pictures, the song Tom Sawyer describes a mundane, individualistic rebel, much like the band themselves. This album reached number 3 on the Billboard 200 album chart and has been certified quadruple platinum. Signals saw synthesizers take center stage, more so than their previous albums. Tracks such as Subdivisions are a great example where the synthesizers create the frontline melody whilst the guitar takes the backseat. The reggae and ska elements of their last two albums were also stronger than ever, as seen in songs like Chemistry. Their following album, 1984's Grace Under Pressure, saw Rush once again building upon their synthesizer-based sound with the addition of electric drums, fantastic guitar melodies, and some of the most 80s music videos you've ever seen. Power Windows released in 1985 following this, and saw the peak of Geddy's keyboard obsession. Alex describes the record as a challenge, especially with his diminished guitar work in most of the track. Take Middletown Dreams, for example. This track has a clear lack of driven guitars in its verses that would probably have been found in most of their other work. 1987's Hold Your Fire was the last album oriented in this way. The album is a blend of equal parts high octane and solemn emotion, with songs like Force 10 and Time Stands Still showing the spectrum of sound housed on the album. With the band growing older and their music changing to conform to the 90s, Rush released Presto in 1989 and Roll the Bones in 1991. Both of these albums saw a clear return to form, with songs like Superconductor that are heavily guitar-centric and clearly lacking the keyboards of their previous albums. Bravado is another song with plenty of guitars and heavy bass that still retains the emotional flair of songs such as Time Stands Still. Counterparts and Test for Echo continue this trend of more guitar-driven songs. However, these albums include more jazz elements as a result of Neil Peart's time with a jazz drummer, Freddie Gruber. Following the conclusion of the Test for Echo tour, the band entered a 5-year hiatus after the death of Neil Peart's daughter and wife. Whilst Neil travelled 55,000 miles across North America to mourn and reflect, Alex and Geddy went along their own paths. Alex states that he believed the band was ending, and that after all that had happened to Neil, the band didn't seem important. Geddy worked on a solo career, whilst Alex made music for TV with a range of bands. Only after Neil married his second wife, photographer Carrie Nuttall, did Neil decide to return to his bandmates. In 2001, Rush reformed and set about making their next album. Following their 5-year hiatus, Rush returned to the studio to record Vapor Trails. According to Alex, the album was difficult to make with raw emotions that they were feeling, but still, they came out with something reminiscent of their earlier work. 2002's Vapor Trails was their first album not to include synthesizers since Crest Steel. The album is heavier than any of their previous work, with songs like Sweet Miracle and One Little Victory that share comparisons with heavy metal. Rush celebrated their 30th anniversary tour by touring in the summer of 2004 and even teased that they would be writing new material. 2007's Snake and Arrows saw the band working apart from one another to produce the album. As the band wound down, however, they released their final studio album, Clockwork Angels, a fantastic concept album that served as a fitting bookend to their career. The album follows the story of a boy who is raised to do as he was told and who believes that life will work out for the best, unprepared for the pitfalls in his life. Everything that they had learnt over the years went into this album, making sure every song could stand on its own while still fitting into the greater narrative. The final song on the album, The Garden, serves a beautiful outro to their career. Anyway, thanks for watching this video, and honestly, it's been interesting to redo this one, and yeah, we'll leave it at there.